Hi everyone, my name is Oestlien. I'm a product manager on the team at Google that builds products for businesses and advertisers, all centered around Google Plus and our social graph. And what I wanted to talk to you guys about today is the work that we've had a lot of really interesting brands do on Google Plus, because there's really some phenomenal stuff happening, and we wanted to just showcase some of it to give you a sense of what's possible with the platform. So when we started the Google Plus project a few years ago, the idea that we had was that sharing on the web was broken. That really what social had kind of become was this broadcast medium where you were saying one thing and it was going out to everyone. But there's nuance to how we communicate with each other in the real world that wasn't reflected on the web. So we wanted to create a platform that allowed you to share with the people you care about and explore the things you're into. Because when you're able to communicate with people on sort of a one-to-one basis or on a one-to-few basis, you're able to have much deeper conversations about the things that you're interested in. So let's take the example, real simple one, of a birthday. If it's your kid's 5-year-old birthday, that's one of those things that you want to share with your family, with your relatives, but it's not necessarily something you want broadcasted out to your coworkers or your extended network of friends. That's why we came up with the model of circles. We wanted a really lightweight mechanism that would let people communicate and organize their friends in ways where they knew that they weren't oversharing, and on the recipient side, you knew that you weren't really looking at all this stuff that isn't really necessarily relevant to you. I'm sure everyone here is used to the oversaturation of baby photos on social networks today, right? So we're trying to solve that by creating something simple where you just click, drag and drop your friends or your family into particular circles, and you share based on that. And we've seen that work really, really well. Over 50% of the sharing that happens on Google Plus happens through circles. And that's whether you're doing a photo album or you're doing a Hangout, right, where you can actually communicate with 10 people simultaneously via video. All those things can be sort of limited to the specific circles that you want to communicate with. As a result, we've seen this incredible rise of communities of interest. So people that have common interests are now able to sort of find each other on Google Plus and share specific material with each other without worrying about overwhelming everybody else. Photography, to me, is the best example of that on Google Plus today. If you look at the photographers that came onto the platform really early on, they found each other and they started sharing these beautiful photos, and it actually influenced our product roadmap pretty dramatically. If you guys watched any part of I/O last week, a huge focus for us right now is making sure that we build a better product around photos, because the community that developed around that interest is so strong. I'll give you an example. So Trey Ratcliffe is probably one of the most famous photographers on Google Plus. He's got a great following, and he really produces beautiful work. So I found him through the people that I follow on Google Plus, and I follow him now. Well, one of the things that we introduced at Google I/O last week is this concept of automatic hashtags. So our algorithms are trained now to analyze all of your posts and figure out what hashtags would be most applicable to them. Of course, as a user, you can turn them on or off if you don't want to use them, but the utility is really great, because as I follow people like Trey, I can then see these hashtags that say something like #photography, and I can deep dive right there in the stream. In one click, I'm now flipping through a bunch of related posts on photography, finding and discovering new photographers, beautiful work. And ultimately, I'm ending up in things like the Google Plus Community Project, right, where we have communities now forming around even more specific things like night photography, really topical conversations where people can go deep and get really engaged. And what is the result? Well, we launched probably about 18 months ago, and in that time, we've seen our user base grow to about 190 million active monthly users. And that's in Google Plus itself, so that's people using Hangouts, using the stream. So we're really excited about that. And if you go a step further and you think about Google Plus as the social spine of all of Google, right, where we're bringing identity into all of our products and putting people first, we actually have 390 million active Google Plus users across all the Google properties, using Google Plus features on YouTube, on search, maps, and all these other places. And if you actually look at the business side of things, we've had millions of Google Plus pages created. And in fact, the top 100 brands on Google Plus now have over 100 million cumulative followers. So we're really, really excited about that. And we're excited about that because the tools that the users are using are just as applicable to brands. So brands are starting to do some really phenomenal work. And not just brands, but artists, publishers, game developers. You see everybody migrating over to the platform because of the unique way in which it empowers you to express your brand. So let me give you a few examples of that. When Alicia Keys released her latest album, Girl on Fire, she actually launched it on Google+. She was able to do a Hangout and introduce the album to the world, bring on the collaborators that worked on the album with her, and actually bring her superfans right into that experience. And that's something that's so unique to Google+. But it got a huge amount of pickup, right? It was featured in Entertainment Weekly, Billboard talked a lot about it, and the album debuted at #1. Of course, it debuted at #1 because it's a great album, but the type of experience that you can generate around your content, around your fan base on Google+ is really unique. Let's take a look at a highlight.
What's up? How y'all doing? This is amazing. This is so exciting for me to be able to hang out with some of my favorite crew, everybody who's tuned in, and for us to be able to literally debut the Girl on Fire album right here, right now for y'all. Like, this is crazy. Actually, it's history. You know, to be honest, it's history. Nobody's ever done it quite like this before. So we're the first ones that are doing it like this.
So they were the first, but they're not the only ones. We've just had some really incredible stories emerge about how our platform is being used. Taylor Swift introduced the name for her new album, Red, on Google+, and even debuted that song, I'll get this wrong, We Will Never Ever Be Together, something, right? How was that? She debuted that song on Google+, and of course that shot to #1 too, so we've got a good track record there. Steven Spielberg previewed Lincoln. He did the trailer for Lincoln for the first time on Google+. We've had people like John Mayer, Tiger Woods. Ellie Goulding came on Google+ and actually did a digital signing of her new album for all of her fans. But it's not just artists. Angry Birds, the guys behind Angry Birds, Rovio, when they launched the new Angry Birds Star Wars, they actually did a countdown to the midnight launch on Hangouts with all their fans. Got everybody super fired up, really excited about the product and the opportunity. And businesses have figured this out too now. When Fiat launched the Panda car that now at least you see all over San Francisco, they did it via Google+ Hangout. So let's take a look at some more brand examples because I think they're really interesting. Clinique introduced a new eye cream recently. When they did that, they actually created a Google+ Hangout and reached out to all the beauty bloggers out there. And the Hangout was so successful and they got so fired up about it that they then repurposed that Hangout recording for their YouTube channel. And they went a step further and they reformatted the video to become an ad that they could run on YouTube. And that ad ran in-stream and YouTube video ads, and it actually got 19 times the view-through rate of the traditional ads that they had been running on YouTube, and 10 times the click-through rate. So really powerful results when you actually engage with users, because there's something that Google+ does, which is that it makes the experience personal. You're face-to-face with your customer, with people that are passionate and lobby on behalf of your brand. One of my favorite examples is Cadbury. They were really early adopters of the Google+ platform and have gone out of their way to sort of come up with really creative ways in which they can engage with chocolate lovers and people that are interested in their product on Google+. When they reached 500,000 followers, they actually created a giant chocolate bar in the form of their Google+ page. And they haven't stopped there. They keep doing really creative things. So they created a +1 version of their dairy milk bar, posted on that, and that got a big reception on Google+ from all the people that were following Cadbury's. And what they've really been creative about is using the models that we built intuitively in the beginning around things like circles. So they've taken their followers, which by the way, is well over 3 million, and gone from 500,000 to well over 3 million now. They've organized them into circles. So now they have a taster's circle, for example, where they send them early versions of candy bars, and they all go in and hang out, and they sort of unpack it and taste it together for the first time. So it's like this live, living focus group with people that are passionate and really want to be involved in your brand.
Our attitude has always been to see what's different about Google Plus to other social networks. The thing that's most different is Hangouts. You can't really do it on any other platform. We've done 3 Hangouts so far. The first one, we created a chocolate version of our Google Plus page. Then we did a second one with Rebecca Adlington, one of the Olympians we're sponsoring and supporting. And we've just kind of met up with one of our chocolate tasters and done an informal kind of discussion on the basics of chocolate. We spent quite a long time with our first Hangout kind of thinking, what will we do, when will we do one? I made it quite complicated in our head, and the reality was it's as easy as having a conversation with someone face to face.
I think it's really cool for a company as big as Cadbury to actually be communicating with customers.
My favourite feature about Hangouts on Air is the ability to kind of have this really close connection with a small group of people, but do that in a way that lets thousands of people see it.
So Rebecca, how many laps do you train in a day?
I do about 7,000 to 8,000 meters a session, and I do 10 sessions a week.
There's something quite powerful about sitting in front of someone, essentially eye to eye, and having a chat. It's a new frontier, and it's something that technology 2 years ago wouldn't have allowed us to do.
I really like dark chocolate with like caramelized orange in it.
Hangouts are like a really amazing way of kind of building that really personal connection with fans. So I would say brands, give it a try. Think about a new way of connecting with your consumers and having a chat with them.
I saw a bunch of Cadbury's bars floating around earlier, so it's kind of apropos that we brought them up. Now, one thing that I love about Google is, of course, we don't just do this high-impact brand communication stuff. We really try and make sure that it's measurable and that the impact is real. Just from their involvement in Google Plus and by using all the tools and features that we've developed around Google Plus, Cadbury has seen a 17% increase in the click-through rate from their ad campaigns on Google. And the referral traffic that they get from Google websites has gone up 7.5%. Now their Plus page is getting on the order of 10,000 new followers a day. So they've built this incredible momentum that keeps growing. And they've expanded as we've expanded our product offering. So when we launched Communities, Cadbury was one of the first companies to gravitate towards that. And they launched a baking community. And in this baking community, they created this reciprocity that doesn't necessarily exist with the page, right? On the page, Cadbury has the opportunity to express themselves, but now in this community, all the followers that are interested in Cadbury now have the opportunity to share back. So they're doing really creative things, like contests where they had well over 2,000 submissions for recipes using Cadbury's products. And they actually selected 11 of those and are commercializing them, putting them on their website, and using them. But it doesn't just end with Cadbury on the community front. We've got cult TV shows, big automotive companies, Game of Thrones. So we actually had E come in and guest host the Game of Thrones community, and they were giving all sorts of behind-the-scenes information about what was going on. So the Communities product is just a beautiful extension of what we originally created with Circles, where now you can take those discussions and you can really deep dive with people that are of a similar mindset, of common interests, and go into these really rich discussions that don't really exist on other platforms. So what would it mean if a brand kind of pulled out all the stops and really went for it on the Google Plus platform, used all of the features that we've created to really build a best-in-class experience for a marketing campaign? Well, Topshop is one of the top fashion retailers in the world. They have over 400 stores in 38 countries. They're just expanding now into the US. And they decided to completely reinvent their fashion show and give their Google Plus followers exclusive access to London's Fashion Week in a really creative way. Let's take a look.
The glass as fast as you can think to the cheap perfume. No one's moving, they just rather stand and wait until someone starts to move. Someone starts to move. Shake, shake, shake. It's only up to you. It's only up to you.
That makes my job very easy. What they did was they actually took something like Hangouts and they built applications on top of Hangouts. So when the actual fashion show was happening and the models were walking down the catwalk, they built an app on top of Hangouts that let people that were watching that Hangout live select the clothing as it was being modeled and build their own collections and share those collections on Google+. And the buyers at Topshop were actually looking at and analyzing that data to figure out what they should put in the stores. So they were literally letting the Google+ followers become the buyers for Topshop. They created this be the model concept where you could go behind the scenes with all the models that were involved that week in Fashion Week. You could see what it was like from their perspective and really get a sense for what this fashion show was all about. And in their flagship store in London, they actually put in a booth where you could go, having tried on the clothes, you could go in, take a bunch of photos of yourself in the clothing, and it would get uploaded to Topshop's events page. And I think we actually have a version of that photo booth there. If you guys want to go and play around with it, it gets uploaded to our Internet Week page. So really creative work that drove results for Topshop. They got several 100,000 followers from this effort. And on things like the Hangout, the average time spent was like 10 to 15 minutes watching these models on the runway. And it got about a 50% plus reshare rate when people were actually getting these collections from their friends. So really powerful, really impactful, and actually with the numbers to back it up. And that's because they really took that concept of Google+ as a platform and as the social spine across Google properties to heart. Because Google+ and your presence on Google+ is really the hub of everything that you can do with Google. If you think about your Plus page as the center, well, then you can go and look at places like search. You have brands that are really involved on Google+, like National Geographic. For their 125th anniversary, they did a hangout with explorers on each of the continents. So really incredible stuff, beautiful activity that we want to showcase, that users want to discover. And when they search for things that are relevant, like they search for National Geographic on search, we'll actually take the right-hand side of the page and tailor that to showcase the Plus page and the content that's being produced, so that your conversation with users becomes so much more real time and you can represent yourself how you want to be understood in that moment. If you take it a step further, with Search Plus Your World, people that follow you now can start to get their search results tailored based on the content that you're producing. So if you're talking about things that they're interested in, a common interest that you might share, those results will now show up in search. And of course, one of the most powerful things that's happened is as we've integrated follower endorsements into advertising campaigns, we've actually seen something on the order of a 5 to 10% increase in click-through rate for those campaigns. And that's fully automated now, so you don't even have to do anything as an advertiser. I can't think of too many things that require no work on your part as an advertiser that can generate for free a 5 to 10% lift in click-through rate. So we're really excited about that. But your relationship with customers, with your audience, with your fans, it goes far beyond just search, far beyond just Google+. It's actually, now we live in a multi-device world. It's cross-platform, it's cross-device. And so when we rolled out Google+ Sign-In, or the ability to authenticate on partner sites via Google+, one of the things we thought about was how could we use that to improve the ability of publishers, of brands, of website owners to connect the people that are interacting with them on their websites to the apps that they've invested so much time in building. So if you're an Android user, we'll actually look to see if you've installed the related app for a particular website, and we'll prompt you with our over-the-air installation process to install that app on your Android device. 40% of the users that get that prompt actually accept the install. We've taken it a step further now with single sign-on, which we introduced last week at Google I/O, so that when you sign in to Google and you've actually participated in Google+ Sign-In, you're logged in anywhere. So when you sign into Google, you're signed into the app. There's kind of that friction that's always created when you jump from one place to another, where you now have to put in your data again, your credentials. Well, if you're logged in Google+ and you go to a partner page where you've already authenticated with them, you're automatically logged in. So that reservation that you did on the desktop just automatically shows up in the app. The ticket that you bought automatically shows up, and that relationship continues across all these platforms. So one thing that I actually am introducing today, this is about to launch, and we're really excited to introduce it, is this concept of the related pages, Google Plus pages widget in Gmail. So as websites, as businesses, you've spent years building up an email list so that you can maintain a relationship with your user base, and you have whole teams dedicated to communicating with those people, people that buy from you, people that are interested in receiving offers from you. And what we've done now with this widget is when you send those emails to Gmail, we'll actually look and find the page that's connected to that email, and we'll prompt the user right then and there to follow the business right from their Gmail account. What's exciting about that is it really shows how Google Plus is the social spine that carries across everything we're doing at Google. So now, as you reach out to your email subscribers, we'll prompt them to interact with you on Google Plus as well, so that you can maintain that relationship in a social setting and capitalize on all the products and features we have, like Hangouts and otherwise. You know, Larry gave a really great talk at Google I/O last week, and the big emphasis was that technology should really take a back seat. That what we're trying to accomplish at Google is to make the things that really matter in your life front and center in your life. So the technology that goes into making Hangouts work is less important than the fact that now you can communicate with family members all across the world for free in this multi-user video chat environment, right? That you can discover interests, and that as a brand, you can build a community and interact with users in completely new and interesting ways. We think that technology really has the ability to empower us, to change our lives, and we're really focused on building out technology that you don't even notice, so that you can really focus on what matters. And I think one of the best examples of that was actually the fireside hangout that we did earlier this year with the president, or last year with the president, where we actually had a bunch of Google Plus users submit questions, and ultimately we had a group of them participate in a hangout with the president where they could share their fears, concerns, and interact face-to-face with the leader of the free world. Let's take a look.
My fellow Americans, I can hear your wonder as to where we are headed in this troubled world.
The economy really hit Evanston. We've all been touched by it, and so our kids just ask questions.
You hear everybody say pay by student loans, but you go to bed at night and you wonder, how are you going to pay for it?
When you think of America today, who is going to look out with my needs and what I'm doing as a small business owner?
When you grow up in Michigan, part of your identity is going to be tied to the auto industry. You just want to know, is it going to survive?
My husband was laid off 3 years ago. When, something's taken from you, the big question is, what are we going to do?
Mr. President, what kind of hope can you give?
We need really your ear.
How are we going to improve cars and outsell the competition?
Our troubles will not be over tomorrow, but we are on our way. And we are headed in the right direction. Together, we cannot fail.
So I hope that gave you guys a good sense for what is possible with the Google Plus platform. We're really trying to build something here that changes the way you interact with audiences all over the world. And if you want more information, I invite you to go check out google.com/plus/business. Thanks.